Hello, this video is about blood typing. Blood typing depends on the same kind of idea, the same concepts as our immune response does. So for our immune response, we have two key words that are more important than really anything else, and those are antigens and antibodies. Antigens are the markers on the outside of a cell that says uh, what the cell is, where it belongs, and antibodies are tiny little Y-shaped, usually molecules that can be produced by plasma cells that stick to antigens. And when they stick to antigens, they can cause them to agglutinate or stick together, clump together, otherwise be unable to do what they're trying to do. So for our red blood cells, our erythrocytes, that are 45% of the volume of our blood, they also have antigens. There are three antigens we need to know about. There are more than that in real life, but there are three major ones, which are the A, the B, and the Rh antigen. Rh is named Rh because we first discovered it in the rhesus monkey. Um, Sometimes we call it D. Why not C? Go read about it if you want. So we have these markers on our red blood cells, and the type of red blood cells you make will have just one particular type, or two, or three, or zero of these antigens, and you'll always make the same kind. So if you have type A blood, you will always put these little A antigens, little A markers on your erythrocytes. If you have type B blood, you'll always put these B markers, these B antigens. If you have type Rh, you'll always put these Rh antigens. And you can have any of them, or all of them, or none of them. If you have none at all, that's type O. And type O was initially called type 0 because there were 0 antigens, but now we call it type O, which is, I think, kind of a typo. But that's what we call it right now. We call it type O. And O negative especially means that we don't have the Rh antigen. For the Rh antigen, we can either have it and we write plus, or don't have it and we write minus. If we have an A antigen, we write A. If we don't have it, we write nothing. If we have a B antigen, we write B. And if we don't have it, we write nothing. So if you have the A antigen and the B antigen, you would have type AB blood. If you have the A antigen and the Rh antigen, you would have A positive blood. If you have all three, an A, I'll do a different color here, an A and a B and an Rh, you would have A and B and Rh. So you just write what's there, and the only tricky one comes from Rh. So your red blood cells will have some of these markers, or all of them, or none. And the opposite is going to be present in the plasma of your blood. If you have A antigens on your red blood cells, you cannot have I'm going to write this down. If you have A or B or Rh antigens, you cannot have the corresponding antibody in your plasma, or else your own blood would coagulate, agglutinate, clot, clump, cause blockages. So if you have those antigens on your erythrocytes, you cannot and vice versa. So you cannot have those antibodies in your plasma. And if you have those antibodies in your plasma, you can't have those antigens on your blood cells. So antibodies are very, very small. They float around in your plasma. They're not attached to any given cell. When an antigen and an antibody come together, they cause agglutination. If you look at the test for testing blood types, the way that you do it is you take a sample of blood, just a drop of blood, and you also add some A antibodies, or some B antibodies, or some Rh antibodies, which are sometimes called D. And the control is just adding water to make sure that you don't have anything otherwise wrong with your setup. If you have an Rh antigen on your blood cell and you add an anti-Rh antibody, you're going to get clotting or clumping or agglutination, which shows up as little clusters of blood and the rest is kind of watery. If you don't have a match between antigen and antibody, then you just get something that looks like blood. So what we want to avoid is agglutination when we have blood donors. When somebody is in need of blood or you're donating blood, you want to make sure that you give them blood that can help them and not cause clotting and eventually health problems all the way up to death. The compatibility is something you'll have to be able to predict, and also explain. We're going to be using this smaller version of a compatibility chart. This one has all of the positives and negatives, and this one has just assuming that they're all Rh negative. It's the same kind of pattern, and we can see that the pattern is you can always donate to your own type. O and O works out. A and A works out. B and B works out. You can always donate to your own blood type. You can always accept from your own blood type. If you have blood type O, you can give, if you're the donor, to everybody because your red blood cells have no markers on them, which means they don't look foreign. If you have blood type AB, then you have both types of marker on there. You have the A antigens and the B antigens, which I'm drawing here like in that other picture as little pokey things and roundy things. If you have both of those, then a person with type O blood will see any of these two as foreign antigens and therefore probably there to infect you. Your immune system is smart, but not that smart. And so they will cause agglutination and you will not be happy or healthy. If you give type AB blood to somebody with type A, they see the type A antigen and they say, okay, that's fine. I'm used to that. That's good. I like it. But then they see this type B antigen and they say, no, that's foreign. I've never seen that before. We should probably clot. We should probably make antibodies to stop this problem. It's not really a problem, but your immune system doesn't know that. If you have type B blood for the recipient, you give them AB blood. Again, the same thing. This part here looks good. The B antigen was fine. But the A antigen, again, causes problems and will cause agglutination. The antibody and the antigen coming together. So if we have an anti-B antibody or an anti-A antibody, as soon as that antibody clicks on to the antigen, that way or that way, it will cause it to get sticky, and that causes the clotting or clumping that we see as a problem. So you can always give to your own blood type. That's this diagonal line here. You can always accept blood from type O, especially O negative. It's the universal donor. And if you are type AB as a recipient, you're in luck because you can accept type O blood, A blood, B blood, or AB blood. And especially if you have type AB positive, you can accept literally any type of blood. So study that chart, and not just the chart, but also make sure that you can explain all of this in terms of antigens and antibodies. Those are the key concepts.